Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents The Feedback Fix. Dump the past, embrace the future, and lead the way to change. By Joe Hirsch. Forward by Marshall Goldsmith. Narrated by Stephen J. Cohen. Publisher's note: in this audio edition, you will hear references to illustrations and tables present in the print and ebook formats of this book. Forward. When I developed the concept of feed-forward many years ago, I had no idea that it would have such a long life or so many surprising applications. In the beginning, I was simply looking for a better way to do performance appraisals. I had been an executive coach for several years when I observed that the employee reviews tended to be an uncomfortable, embarrassing, or downright painful experience for both the giver and the receiver. Successful leaders who prided themselves on their drive and competence had a particularly hard time hearing about their own failures and missteps. Often they came away determined to prove that the negative feedback was wrong. That approach was rarely helpful, either for the person or for the organization. I designed Feed Forward as an alternative to traditional feedback. As Joe Hirsch notes in this book, Feed Forward involves asking for advice about how to do better in the future. The listener collects the advice without judgment or comment except to say thank you. He or she is free to discard anything irrelevant or unhelpful. I found that successful executives were particularly eager to try it, since it gave them a chance to accept a challenge without the burden of negative judgment. It empowered them to set a course for the future instead of dwelling on the past, which they couldn't change anyway. Inherently positive, it assumed their capacity to change, and it was faster and more efficient than traditional feedback. Many of them actually enjoyed the process, even describing it as fun. It became an important part of my coaching process. I am delighted that Feed Forward has proved useful not just for me, but also for many others. In this book, Joe Hirsch gives compelling examples of how individuals and organizations are using it, with remarkable results. If my books and articles haven't convinced you of the value of Feed Forward, the Feedback Fix surely will. Hirsch breaks down how it works and why it works, drawing on a trove of scientific research as well as his own reporting. From the halls of a mammoth multinational like Deloitte to a tiny school in Israel, and many places in between, he shows how Feed Forward is creating a quiet revolution in the way people work and live. Particularly striking is how Feed Forward applies to educational settings. Instead of rating students on what they did in the past, the grading system familiar to most of us, Hirsch shows how some pioneering educators are asking their students positive and open-ended questions about how to solve problems in the future. In business, he shows how the principles of Feed Forward are helping individuals and teams look forward and take the longest possible view of their own plans and potential. He also includes some poignant examples of how empowering Feed Forward can be for families. This is a great point, and one I've tried to impress upon coaching clients and people at my seminars over the years. Feed Forward is not just a tool for business success. It's also a life skill that can have dramatic consequences. For example, several years ago I taught a one-day leadership course for a healthcare organization in Oakland for about 1,000 managers and union leaders. After my talk, a woman named Trudy Triner took the microphone to ask a question. It turned out she didn't have a question, but rather a suggestion for me. She had attended many of my courses and read my books. She said, "You always talk about the value of asking direct reports. How can I be a better manager?" Or asking coworkers, "How can I be a better team player?" Or asking customers, "How can I be a better supplier?" And even asking partners or children, "How can I be a better partner or better parent?" The one thing that you have left out that you should start teaching everyone is to ask their parents, how can I be a better daughter or a better son? It was true. I hadn't thought of that, but she had. And after my last course, she decided to call her mother, who lived in Arkansas at the end of a long country road. Trudy went on to tell us how her mother had answered. It was pretty heartbreaking. Now that Dad is dead, I live alone, Trudy's mom said. Every day, I walk up that long drive to go to the mailbox. Almost every day, there is nothing in the mailbox. This makes me feel very lonely. It would mean so much to me if you could just send me some cards or pictures or notes, so that when I walk to the mailbox, there will be a little something inside. Trudy accepted the challenge and began sending cards, pictures, notes, and ticket stubs, flower seeds, tea bags, and pretty much anything that would fit into an envelope. She kept it up almost every day for 2.5 years, until her mother died a week after being diagnosed with cancer. It cost Trudy nothing, and it meant everything to her mom, who in the last years of her life gained a more tangible connection to the daughter she loved. That's just one example of how feedforward is simple to understand and do, but profound in its consequences. This excellent book has many others. I am excited about what possibilities it will unlock for you. Marshall Goldsmith, executive coach, business educator, and New York Times best-selling author, ranked the #1 leadership thinker in the world by Thinkers 50. Introduction. A Butterfly Gets Its Wings. On a clear autumn morning in September, a 6-year-old boy named Austin decided that he wanted to draw a butterfly. Not just any butterfly, a western tiger swallowtail. Swallowtails are large, colorful butterflies that can be spotted in urban parks and gardens across much of western North America, from the sun-dappled valleys of British Columbia down to the dusty plains of North Dakota. With its dramatic yellow and black striped body, forked hind wings, and blue and orange spots that run along its tail, the western tiger swallowtail is also one of the more complex-looking butterflies you might encounter out in the woodlands of Garden City, Idaho, a sleepy town of about 11,000 that is home to lush gardens, an artist's district, and the Answer Charter School, where Austin had just begun first grade. Students at Answer have developed a knack for creating high-quality work for authentic audiences. In what is now a school tradition, the kindergarten class completes a year-long study of birds and tops off the unit with a real-life project, creating detailed hand-drawn cards that feature bird illustrations on one side and general information about them on the other. They're printed on a quality cardstock, bundled in box sets, and sold locally around the state at highway rest stops. The proceeds are used to support the preservation of bird habitats. Austin's class had loved this project so much that they managed to convince their first-grade teacher to run a similar year-long project, this time about butterflies. Having just seen a western tiger swallowtail fluttering around his backyard, Austin thought it would make an excellent choice for the project. He chose a glossy swallowtail diagram from the pile of butterfly samples on the teacher's desk, got to work on his initial sketch. Not a Rembrandt, but not bad for a 6-year-old. Austin's sketch, drawn on lined butcher paper, had managed to capture the swallowtail's basic size and contour. No one would mistake it for a dragonfly or even a fighter jet. Actually, a sketch like this would, in most cases, receive approving marks from the teacher, find its way home to Mom and Dad, and be hung proudly atop the refrigerator for all to see and adore. But not at Answer. At this school, first drafts are never final products. And the revision process isn't just managed by teachers. The students get a say, too. From the time they enter school, the kids at Answer are taught to critique each other's work in a way that's delicate but detailed. Even at a tender age, they give each other feedback that's focused on the future, not about the work they've done, but about the work that needs to get done. So, not long after Austin drew his butterfly, a troop of first graders assembled on a brightly colored circle mat, quietly studied his work, and, after a thoughtful silence, began to weigh in. "It should be pointier," said one boy. "The legs need to look like triangles," said a girl sitting nearby. "Where are the swallowtails?" asked a third child, referring to the extensions that should have appeared under the butterfly's wings. They were right, so Austin went back to work, this time producing a more angular version of his butterfly, complete with swallowtails. Back at the carpet, his classmates noted his improvements, but pointed out that it was missing upper and lower wings on both sides, so Austin made a third version, this time with the forgotten pair of wings. His progress from that initial draft was considerable. He was getting closer. With a little more angularity, the wings would be set, and Austin could start reproducing the color pattern to get it to match the real thing. He did 3 more drafts, 6 in total, before finally earning the enthusiastic approval of his classmates. With each round of feedback, they helped him transform his butterfly from the initial sketch down to the final rendition, which, by the way, looked so lifelike it could have flapped right off the page. When it comes to feedback, there's a lot to be learned from the story of a little boy and his butterfly, and most of it is probably familiar. The feedback that Austin received seemed to have all the right elements: specific, honest, targeted, timely. It made allowances for setbacks but didn't compromise on high standards. But none of those qualities by themselves explain why a fidgety first grader would quite literally keep coming back to the drawing board and willingly, even happily, submit to multiple rounds of feedback from peers. There was something about that feedback, something in its trajectory and tone, that made this style stand out from the usual feedback fare. That's how Austin's story ends, but it's where ours begins. Fear and Loathing. This is a book about giving feedback, but not the kind you've come to know and loathe. Whether it's the feedback we give to employees and coworkers, teachers and students, or family and friends, we have a nagging suspicion that it's ultimately going to fail. And we're right. According to Columbia University psychologist Kevin Oxner, people apply just 30% of the feedback they receive. The rest is ignored, rejected, stonewalled, or mangled the moment it arrives. Even if they don't dread feedback, the vast majority of people just aren't interested in applying it in their professional or personal lives. If delivering feedback is going to run into that much resistance, sharing it seems like a major waste of time and energy. Then again, feedback moments happen so frequently and often when we least expect them that it's hard to avoid the issue altogether. Feedback is happening all the time. It's the wary look you give to the person standing too close to you in line, or the angry blares of your horn as you chastise the driver who just cut you off in rush hour traffic. We give feedback when we write reviews about a product, leave comments about a blog, award stars to our Uber driver, and decide whether to tip the barista at Starbucks. And those aren't theoretical scenarios. I experienced all of them firsthand in the course of 24 hours while writing this introduction. Giving feedback isn't just a natural blip in our day. It's an inescapable part of our lives. What all these examples have in common is a predilection for the past. You can't retroactively push that person back in line or stop that car from nearly causing an accident. The review or comments you leave aren't likely to change the way you feel, and the ratings or tips you either give or withhold can't alter the service or product you got or wished you received. The past cannot be changed. What happens there stays there, and there's not a thing we can do about it, which is why so many people try their hardest to simply avoid giving feedback at all costs, even when that means taking a preemptive strike. You know those customer experience surveys that hotels sometimes leave in the rooms, it turns out that travelers are less likely to book return trips to hotels that ask them to rate their stay. The same holds true for supermarkets that pester shoppers about their pre-purchase expectations at the checkout counter. We would rather sleep or shop somewhere else. Even if the hotel or supermarket meets all our other consumer criteria, just as long as it means not having to deal with giving feedback about past experiences we can't change or control. Not only can those feedback encounters be unpleasant, but they can also get downright negative. In the high-stakes testing culture of modern education, schools are allowing grades and performance data to undercut real and meaningful learning. Study after study has found that students from elementary school to graduate school and across multiple cultures demonstrate less interest in learning as a result of being graded. Feedback in the form of grades is the ultimate restraint. Grades can't be changed. The lesson can't be relearned, and numbers and letters don't spell out a way forward. Worse, teachers and students get stuck on the wheel of relentless grading, diminished interest in learning, poor outcomes, more tests and grades. The cycle quickly turns vicious. But the real victim is the knowledge that students might have otherwise gained had feedback amounted to more than a rating. The picture is just as dismal when you move from the classroom to the boardroom. As Chapter 1 explains, the familiar model of performance management is broken. With its lack of frequency, judgmental tone, endless documentation, and uncompromising emphasis on past performance, the rank-and-yank fervor of the last 3 decades is turning out to be a talent suppressor, not accelerant. Most of the time, feedback comes too late. Managers don't like giving it, employees don't like getting it, yet somehow a majority of businesses still end up going for it. Clearly, different people from different places seem to want and need more than traditional feedback can provide. But if that isn't the answer, what is? Feed forward, shifting to future tense. Everyone from chronic dieters to recovering alcoholics knows this fundamental truth about change. You can't kick an old habit until you form a new one. Fortunately, human beings are remarkably adept at changing and orienting our behavior toward long-term goals and long-term benefits, providing, of course, that we apply enough resolve and repetition along the way. To make meaningful changes in our feedback, it's not enough to simply unlearn the mistakes of the past. We have to actually replace the past with something else. The future. It's here, in the shift to future tense, that we place feedback into an entirely different context. In the past, we look back. In the future, we gaze ahead. In the past, we must relive mistakes. In the future, we can reimagine success. The past is a time for reflection. The future is a place for action. The past is already transcribed. The future is still unwritten. We can never change the past. We can always transform the future. In the past, we gave feedback. In the future, we'll give feed forward. Feed forward is a new approach to performance. It comes from Marshall Goldsmith, one of the world's most successful and admired executive coaches, as a way to help individuals, teams, and organizations achieve a positive change in their behavior. While they don't particularly like hearing criticism, Goldsmith writes, successful people love getting ideas for the future. That's because successful people have a high need for self-determination and are more likely to accept ideas that they own, not those that feel forced upon them. Feed forward is based on the idea that people develop best when they focus their energy and attention on a future they can change, not on a past they can't. And when we help others make the leap from past to prologue, we give them permission to rewrite their own stories of performance. Gone are the usual elements of judgment, criticism, and appraisal. Instead, Feed Forward changes the narrative to one of acceptance, support, and development. It supplies others with new ways of thinking about the way they work, learn, and live. When these exchanges are taking place between managers and workers, teachers and students, or parents and children, feedforward lets us dump the past, embrace the future, and change the way we lead and live. And that's something that needs to happen right now. Because unless we fix our feedback, it's going to stay broken. Repair. 6 tools to fix the future. The first part of this book talks about the fix. Chapter 1 shows why traditional feedback needs fixing by taking us inside one of the world's largest professional services companies and showing how it has used feedforward to systematically reimagine the world of performance management. We'll see the emergence of a new workplace ethos that focuses less on numbers and ratings and more on people and process. Once we learn how to identify feedforward in principle, we have to know how to apply it in practice. That will bring us to Chapter 2, where we'll lay out a 6-part plan for repair. It stands for regenerates, expands, particular, authentic, impact, refines. Each step in repair represents a core component of feedforward, and while they're all mutually enhancing, they don't necessarily need to be practiced in unison. Some high-performing organizations and individuals fully commit to the process of repair. Others might choose just a few. But because performance is rarely an all-or-nothing proposition, feedforward shouldn't be either. Learning to develop these complex habits takes lots of practice and persistence. It's more like following a sloped curve than taking a sudden plunge. That's why each step in repair comes wrapped in story frames and strategies that make it easier to get going. From a hoops legend to a legendary hospital, we learn that getting what we want means giving others what they need. Finally, in the upgrade, we'll explore the way feedforward helps people change the way they lead and live. Operating in the past, traditional feedback acts more like a silencer than an amplifier. The one-way conversations, the generic checklists, the obligatory action items, they all come from a single source, the person giving the feedback, not the one receiving it. But with feedforward, managers and teachers who might ordinarily grab all the airtime learn to hand some of that back to others, causing them to experience a dramatic improvement across 4 areas of performance and potential. Creativity. In the information age, when knowledge comes cheap, the real differentiator is how, not what, we learn. As schools and businesses place ever-increasing importance on design thinking and creative work, feedforward can become a crucial driver of discovery. Chapter 3 follows the movements of a hardcore scientist whose psychosocial experiments show that in order for creativity to take hold, we have to learn to let go. And when we release our grip, we unleash the imaginations of everyone around us. Consciousness. Hearing someone else's feedback can be helpful, but listening to our inner voice can be transformative. In Chapter 4, we'll huddle up with a sports psychologist who is turning the world of high performance inside out by reversing the way feedback is shared. From an NFL powerhouse to a retailing giant, feedforward is helping people develop their inside game by tapping the self-knowledge they already possess. Turning on our personal channel can improve our performance at work, our relationships with peers, our competitiveness on the field, and even our personal health and well-being. Through self-talk, mindfulness, and 5 other cognitive habits, feedforward enables us to work smarter, play harder, and live better. Teams. In today's rapidly changing workplace, feedback is a team sport. Chapter 5 profiles a leading executive coach whose company is changing the bottom line on how big business communicates its higher purpose. Surprisingly, in the context of teams, what we show may be more important than what we say. From monkey brains and peanuts to team dynamics and pizza, feedforward can turn teams into team genius. We look at how it unleashes psychological and social ripple effects throughout organizations and explore 4 strategies for getting teams to communicate and cooperate more effectively using feedforward. Autonomy. Why do the minority students at one urban school consistently achieve higher graduation rates than their peers? The secret is self-produced. Chapter 6 makes the case for autonomy-supportive feedforward that gives people the confidence and competence to act. We'll present 3 drivers of autonomy that influence the way we hire and retain talent, develop high performance in schools, and create relationships marked by trust, belonging, and optimism. We'll also expose autonomy killers like praise and incentives and offer 3 feedforward strategies for getting people to stand up and serve on their own. The experiences we create for others, success or failure, joy or fear, growth or decline, are formed not just by what we say, but also by what they hear. From managers and coaches trying to energize their teams, to teachers hoping to motivate their students, to parents looking to empower their children, people from all walks of life are searching for the right words, at the right moment, for the right outcomes. Isn't it time they found them? Through a lively blend of stories and studies, the Feedback Fix shows the power that each of us has to shape human performance and potential. From boardrooms to classrooms, and even around dining rooms, feedforward can change the tone and trajectory of everyday communication. People tend to accept feedback that's consistent with the way they see themselves, but with feedforward, we learn to help others see themselves in an entirely new way. The future is a place of possibility. When we move feedback out of the past and into the future, we start to build a better picture of what others have to say and are able to do. And if we make the right adjustments, chances are they'll want to build alongside us, too. Part 1. The Fix. 1. Why traditional feedback needs fixing. There's a quiet revolution brewing inside of 30 Rockefeller Plaza, home to Manhattan's media and business elite. Over the years, 30 Rock has seen its share of insurgents, usurpers, and raiders try to disrupt the old order, but nothing quite like this. What's happening here seems to break all the rules of revolutions. There's no fight over power or profits, no secret plans for takeovers or turnarounds, no armies or militias, no alliances or backroom deals, no visible signs of resistance or conflict. There aren't even 2 sides of this struggle. For now, it remains a revolution of one. That is, one company, Deloitte. On the surface, Deloitte looks like any other corporate giant. With more than 250,000 employees around the globe, including almost 70,000 in the United States, it is one of the world's largest professional services networks. Deloitte LLP, the U.S. member firm, posted nearly $15 billion in revenue during the 2014 fiscal year. Its array of financial and advisory services is used by businesses across 20 industries, from energy to manufacturing to the life sciences, and the business itself is highly matrixed, staffed by employees who operate with different skill sets, service lines, and geographic stations. For a company of unusual size and reach, Deloitte doesn't seem all that unusual. Until now. Roughly 3 years ago, in the fall of 2013, Deloitte announced plans to radically restructure its review system. It stopped evaluating its employees on the basis of cascading objectives, multi-rater assessments, and number ratings, the trinity of performance management. Instead of tweaking the system, Deloitte scrapped it down to its studs by declaring war on the status quo. The company's executive team decided it was time to try a completely different approach to sharing feedback. Ashley Goodall should know. The silver-tongued Brit, who until recently served as Deloitte's chief learning officer and director of leader development, helped lead the company's charge against traditional feedback. In his role, Goodall managed Deloitte's efforts to develop leaders and innovative new methods of performance management. Trim, with almond brown hair, Goodall speaks with an English accent that is soothing but...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?